Hello, my name is Mohit Deshpande, and in this course we're going to be introducing you to developing Android applications. So you've already set up your development environment and you already have the SDK installed and ready to go. Now how you're going to create a new project is go to File, New, Android Application Project, and then this wizard will lead you through creating a new Android application. Let's create Here we have the name of our project, and here we have the name of our application. We can put our own package name, which should be unique. Set a build SDK, minimum required SDK. Create a custom launcher icon. You can choose to mark this project as library or not. Next, if you do select create custom launcher icon, you'll be brought up to this screen where you should substitute your own. And you can see you can select padding. This is just from clip art. You can have text, which I don't recommend. You can have clip art, which I don't recommend. You take time into designing your own image. We can create a blank activity or a master detail flow, which will have two panes on a tablet screen. You would have the list view on the left pane and the details view on the right pane, but if you're on a smaller device screen, you just have the list view. Although note that you have to have a minimum SDK version of at least 11 in order to run this. Let's create blank activity. You can give it a name, main activity, that seems fine. No navigation, no parent, there's the title. Hit finish. And there's your dummy app. But the application we're going to be looking at, and then it'll bring up the UI here, but the application that we'll be looking at is called Social Notes. Let's go into the directory here. You can see we have a source folder, a generated Java files folder, we have Google APIs library, and dependencies of Android. We have assets, we have a binary directory, a libs directory, resources, UML, Android manifest, icon launcher web, a license that I put, ProGuard, and then project.properties. Alright, let's start from the bottom. Project.properties is something you really should not modify at all. It essentially, if you can open up here, it'll give us a target. You can see we have references to different libraries that we're going to be using. ProGuard is a way, if you're selling a paid application, ProGuard is a way to obfuscate your code so that malicious hackers can't take your APK file, reverse engineer it, and then sell it off as their own product, or sell it for free. The license, I just added the license in because this is published to a free I'm using a source control and publishing this whole thing to GitHub, so you can get the source code there at github.com and just look for social notes. We have to have a icon for the Google Play Store on the web instead of on a mobile device on the Play Store. The manifest file, if I can open that up, here's all the code for the manifest file, and essentially what this manifest file does is it keeps track of all the activities, providers, services, and things that are in your application. You must declare activities, providers, or services in the manifest. In the manifest, you also have things such as permissions. You can create permissions for other applications to use, or you can use permissions from the system, such as camera, access find location, and etc. UML was just a folder I created to store UML diagrams. This resources folder holds immense amounts of different kinds of resources so that it really gives the developer the power to assign resources to a certain locale, as in a language, or now with Google Play you can localize images too. First we have this drawable folder, and then we have several other kinds of drawable folders. And you can put drawables in there, like images and such. You can see if you put a dash, you can specify certain things. Like here we've specified that this image is these images, I should just say, are only going to be for high density screens. For a general drawable, it'll be this same image will be available on all densities, and it'll be scaled depending on screen size. You can see it's best to have a launcher icon for every different screen density here, and the difference being the pixels per inch of the icon and the size of the icon. You should really take time into creating a good icon, because that's one of the first things the users will see, and make sure that you change the you should change the pixels per inch of the icon and the size of the icon based on the screen density. Moving on, the layout holds all of the XML files for views of your activities. So you have an edit and then a notes map. Menu holds all the action bar menus or the contextual action bar menus, which are essentially menus. You can see we can put different qualifiers. These are called qualifiers when you put a dash something. What this values dash large is, as in the Android system will know that the device you're running the application on qualifies as a large screen, in which case this dimensions file will be brought up instead of this dimensions file. Same thing for these values. V11, -V11, and -V14, that signifies the Android version. Between API 11, API level 11 being Android 3.0 point something, meaning honeycomb. It could be 3.0.1, 3.0.2, depending on your device. And between API level 14 and API level 14 is Android 4.0, 4.0.1, 4.0.2, which is ice cream sandwich. Now, moving on to the XML, that's where you're going to be storing searchable.xml, which allows you to search the data that your application holds, or you can hold preferences in there too. One thing to note is values. You can see that this strings file is not separate in all these value folders, meaning that no matter what device you're running this on, the strings file will be the same for all devices. Now you may want to change that, or you can localize this simply by creating a new folder and then renaming it to values dash EN for English, and you can change it depending on the 2-character language identification code. It's like for FR for French, EN Espanol for Spanish. Moving on. This libraries folder, it's shortened it up to libs. It's a libraries folder, so if you have any jar files that you need, you would have to drag and drop them into the libraries folder and then include them in your build path for the application. This bin or binaries folder essentially holds the finished APK product along with a cache, the Dalvik files, and then the resource hierarchy. Moving on, these are just libraries that hold dependencies here. This gen file, let's look at that real quick. You have two files here. Neither of these should be never, ever manually edit these. We have a build config, and that just states if we are debugging. Now, if you're releasing, you can change this to false. So if you want to add a ton of logging statements, you can say if buildconfig.debug equals true, then you know we're debugging, and you can put your logging statements in that if block. And that way they'll be deactivated once you set this to false. And you'd set it to false by not manually editing this, but going to the preferences of the application, and when you release the application, it'll be set to false. And we also have this R file, and R essentially holds all of your resources. Anything you put in the resource folder will be accessible through this R class. You can see we have a ton of these things, and they're all given these seemingly arbitrary hexadecimal values. For example, let's go into our drawable. You know, we have a marker drawable. You see we have Facebook right here. There's our marker drawable. Here's our launcher drawable. And it just gives it an ID here. And you do not want to modify this at all. Moving on, the source code or src file holds our actual application here. We'll just talk about all the classes we have here briefly. Starting from the bottom, I created a package to hold all our provider information in our database. So the social node provider, what it does is it essentially creates the entire SQLite database back, and what it can do is you can insert, query, update, or delete. This social notes.java, and that holds our database values. It holds the values to our database to our database columns and other necessary things of the content provider. mylocation.java is a file that we use to grab the user's current location. It's a very nice object-oriented way to grab their location, and when you create a new myLocation object, you'd have to override the onLocationGet method, and that would be when you grab location. This Facebook connector contains an asynchronous activity so that we can publish to Facebook on a different thread so we don't block up the main user thread, and that is very important. The share dialog is a more modern way to implement dialogues now using a fragment so that we can reuse this dialogue across our application. The select location activity essentially just has a Google map view for its main view here, and what it does is as soon as you press on a location on the map view and you lift your finger, that'll be where the marker is placed, and that's the new latitude longitude coordinates of the location. It's available when you edit the node that you want to edit, and then you can choose select location, and then this activity helps you choose your location. This preference activity simply holds your preferences, and in preferences what you can do is give like an about, give a way for the user to contact you in case they find something wrong. And all this does is present the preferences.xml that we've already seen. The notes map activity grabs all the notes from the database and displays them on the map view. And then when you tap on a little it puts a little marker to the geo coordinates of your note that it's already been in the database. And it puts a little marker there, and you just tap on the marker, and it'll tell you the title, and then a brief summary, or the content of the note. And you can tap on that balloon, and then it'll bring you to the edit screen. This notes activity, what this does is that it presents you with it's the main view of the entire application. It presents you with a list of notes that are in the database. You can add notes, you can access the notes map activity, you can access edit activity. It's the pivot point of our application. Now this edit activity, what it does, it allows you to edit an existing note or create a new note. And what happens is when you get it from the notes activity, when it creates a new note, you create a blank note and then edit that note. This course is brought to you by Zenva, brought to you in collaboration with Pablo Farias. You can like us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/zenvadev, ZENVADEV. You can also follow us on Twitter at ZenvaTweets.